There are a lot of negative impacts that neighborhoods are experiencing, mostly in terms of city services.
I reject the city's argument that somehow there's something wrong with owners that are renting out short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals under the microscope as the city tries to slap restrictions on those who list on Airbnb and other sites. One group is fighting the plan. A week-long tribunal is now underway, and it could dramatically impact the future of short-term rentals in Toronto, where some say sites like Airbnb are hurting neighborhoods and putting the squeeze on an already tight rental market. Natalie Nanowski joins us live now from Kensington Market. And Natalie, people in that neighborhood really paying close attention to what happens at this tribunal.
Very much so, Dwight. They've covered fences and poles in Kensington Market with the signs that you see behind me. Some of them have pretty catchy phrases. They say things like Kensington Market worth more than just a one-night stand. And of course, what they want to see is more long-term rentals in this neighborhood rather than just having people pass through. So a little bit before the show, I went on some of the rental sites to see how many units I could find. And just in this square kilometer area of Kensington Market, I found 20 units that I could rent for tonight if I wanted to. And a lot of them, Dwight, they looked more like hotels than they did someone's primary residence.
The same company owns this one next door. There's one farther down.
When a new landlord bought up several rental homes in Kensington, Matthew Toth was almost kicked out.
We managed to fight it at the landlord-tenant board, and we managed to stay in our apartment. We've seen other apartments that this same company bought out. He forced the people out and then basically turned the buildings into ghost hotels.
This is one of those hotels. The log boxes are gone now, but there are still dozens of short-term rentals in Kensington. So when it comes to keeping the rules the city passed last year, like limiting rentals to primary residences only, and keeping the length of stay to a maximum of 180 nights each year, Toth agrees.
I've seen the corrosive effect that it can have when you have kind of a whole block of buildings and you don't really have neighbors because the people are just kind of coming and going. When they're saying that they want to use their non-principal residences, it's just a cash grab. And really at this point, people need places to live.
The rules the city and big-time players like Airbnb came up with in 2018 were challenged by some short-term rental hosts before they could be enforced. Many of these hosts have multiple units.
They're not just catering to the traveling public, it's also new immigrants who come to the city and need somewhere to live while they look for a long-term residence. It's people, maybe there's a fire in the kitchen and they need somewhere to live for a couple weeks while work is being done.
But Fairbnb, the organization calling for better regulations on home sharing, says keeping these units off the long-term rental market has done a lot of damage.
I believe the updated number is about 8,000 units off of the rental market, and considering Toronto's vacancy rate right now is 1.1%, it would essentially more than double the vacancy rate.
So the tribunal is expected to wrap up in about a week or so. After that, Dwight, it will take the judge a couple of months to decide whether or not Toronto's rules, the rules the city came up with last year, will need to change.
Thank you, Natalie. It is the busiest subway station in the city at capacity with packed platforms during rush hours. But Bloor Yonge Station is set to get a makeover thanks to a $1 billion investment from the federal government. We'll have details on that coming up. The details on your forecast now, and you're still popular, Colette. Still happy with the forecast out there. Yeah, still looking good.
Really? Because I was I'm beginning to get some grief elsewhere. Yeah, the crowds are mumbling a little bit. Thank you, Dwight, for that. We've had such a stretch. We've been so spoiled. But now the pattern's changing. It's just that it's going to be pretty short-lived. So we are going to see some showers moving in. But, you know, by the time we get to midweek, it's gone again, and we get back into a similar pattern like we just had. So some incredible weather coming back our way. In the meantime, we'll just have to deal with some showers, and you're going to have to find the umbrella umbrella once again. So our current temperatures out there, 22 degrees is what we're dealing with. The wind's picking up a little bit, generally from the east to southeast. You see Hamilton coming in around 15 kilometers an hour, not a big deal, but 33 in Toronto. We're going to find those winds turning a little more southeasterly and eventually to the south for tomorrow and getting stronger. So they'll get quite gusty overnight and into tomorrow. For now, it's just some of the cloud cover that's been moving in, but southwestern Ontario already inheriting some of the showers from the system, and we're going to see these starting to move in after midnight tonight. A little spotty at times coming in towards tomorrow morning. Still some wet conditions around the GTA and up into cottage country. Then perhaps a bit of a break. Then another wave moves in, and what happens is later in the day it gets a little bit better organized as the cold front will sweep through. So once it does, it helps to clear things out, just leaving behind a tiny bit of instability, but generally Wednesday onward looking like nice conditions returning. So Tuesday's our wet day, 19 overnight tonight. Tomorrow we're looking for a high of 24 degrees. Again, wet and breezy, one day only, mostly one day only, Dwight.
Can handle that for one day. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Were you a Taylor Swift fan before?
Yeah, all the time. I can hear my voice in the song with an auto-tune, which is even better.
They're feeling the love from Taylor Swift. Coming up, a story you won't want to miss, how this group of students from Regent Park found themselves on the pop star's newest album. Another funding announcement today by the federal government, this time to help fight gun and gang violence in the province. Federal Crime Prevention Minister Bill Blair says the government will provide $54 million over a 3-year period. Angelina King joins us now live from Peel Police Headquarters, where the announcement was made. Angelina, what did our former police chief have to say today?
Well, he says this is a huge issue affecting how people are living their everyday lives, not just here in Ontario, but across Canada. He says that the number of gang-related homicides in big Canadian cities has gone up by nearly double in the last 5 years, and that now in Canada, the most common method of homicide is by shooting, and that's no exception for gang-related homicides. Now, our current police chief has said that there are more than 100 street gangs in our city. He says that officers have taken about 600 guns rather off the streets so far, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So all of this money will go toward prevention, intervention, enforcement, and the prosecution of gun and gang-related crimes across our province.
We're coming for you. The violence must end now.
A strong message from Ontario's Attorney General as the province explains how it'll spend some of the $54 million to combat gun and gang activity in Ontario.
Enhancing knowledge through improved data collection and intelligence sharing, improved abilities to identify gangs and their members, and targeting operational responses within our community to priority areas.
The province will be creating a new intensive firearm bail team in Peel Region, as well as a new Guns and Gangs Fund in the GTA and Greater Golden Horseshoe region for policing projects and partnerships. The money will also go to establishing an Eastern Ontario gun and gang team that will see Crown lawyers helping with complex investigations and gun and gang specific bail strategies. And there'll be more resources for human trafficking victims. Salima Tajani with the New Direction Youth Program in Brampton says she's happy with today's announcement, but wants to see more of a focus on prevention, saying they see kids as young as 13 with access to guns.
If we are able to prevent it at an early age, we don't have to invest that much resources to intervene. At the age of 22, 23, I feel it's already too late.
The announcement comes after a violent weekend in Toronto, including 3 shootings, 6 injuries, and 1 death. More than 30 bullets were fired in a gang shootout that hit an innocent bystander and saw a stray bullet go through a family's 3rd-floor window. There have been 285 shootings in Toronto this year, according to Toronto police statistics, including 50 this month, 55 last month, and 33 in June. The city is on pace to beat the current high set last year, but shooting deaths are down this year compared to last.
I think people understand there is no easy answer to this.
Earlier today, Toronto Mayor John Tory says he'd like to see more long-term investment in kids and families, and he renewed his call for toughening up laws around bail and sentencing.
And we're saying it over and over again because it's true. There are people who are repeatedly being arrested and let out on bail. This past weekend, again, as a different example, one of the people that was involved in the shooting on Friday night was a person who had not one but 2 recent convictions for firearms offenses in recent years, and yet they're back out on the street now doing it again.
When Bill Blair was asked about any type of potential law changes, he says he believes the right tools are in place as is, and that people from police to judges just need to continue to do their jobs. Now, the province pointed to its bail review team, which it described as a sort of SWAT team made up of Crown lawyers that looks at bail hearings. But in the end, it is up to justices of the peace and judges. Now, in the story, you heard that Peel Region will be getting a new intensive gun bail team. Well, Toronto was given one of those teams last year. One was created. So in that time, it's conducted about 375 bail hearings, 43 reviews, and that has resulted in detention orders about 65% of the time.
Thank you, Angelina. A truck driver has been charged with careless driving after a major crash has shut down the eastbound express lanes of the 401 near the DVP. 2 transport trucks and another car were involved in the accident around 1 a.m. The truck driver slammed into the 2 vehicles ahead, which had slowed down due to an earlier collision. One of the trucks was loaded with some sort of carbon material, which spilled all over the highway, creating a huge mess. It took several hours to clean up. The lanes reopening just before noon. The driver that was charged also suffered minor injuries. Toronto police have a warning for residents in Riverside after 3 dogs died shortly after visiting John Weeks Parkette last week. As Megan Fitzpatrick explains, residents are worried they were poisoned.
Police issued this warning on Sunday after hearing reports of several dog owners who believe that their dogs were poisoned. So this advisory says that a hazardous substance may have been left in this park, but police also saying they're not sure of the delivery method for this potentially hazardous material. They did say, though, that once they started looking into this, they heard from some city workers who tend to this park that they spotted some meat distributed throughout this park, at the time not thinking much of it. But now the theory in this neighborhood is that these dogs may have ingested poisoned meat. A local dog walker posted on a Facebook page that she knows of 2 dogs that have died, and CBC talked to another dog owner whose dog Honey died 1 week ago today. That dog owner saying that over the course of last weekend, his dog showed some symptoms of being ill, and then he found his dog dead on Monday. Unexpectedly, otherwise a healthy dog. He says he is absolutely devastated and heartbroken over this loss, that his dog Honey was his best friend. He found her 3 years ago abandoned and rescued her. Here's more of what he told us about losing his best friend.
She was everything to me. She was like a spouse and a kid and a buddy and a non-prescription 24-hour therapist who just was there to cheer you up and be with you, and also that I found her like literally in the garbage, that somebody thought she belonged in the trash, and I brought her to a place where she was put on a pedestal and she got to live that life for 3 years, and so I'm trying to think of all that, the good, but we were kind of robbed.
Poisoner says if someone was intentionally poisoning these dogs, he's not optimistic they'll get caught, but he does want city officials to do more to warn the public about what may have happened in this park. He says someone put up signs over the weekend warning the community, but then city officials took those signs down. He says that's not right.
There's no posters up, and the irony that a local civic-minded good deed doer posted the place and that the city of Toronto would take them down because it didn't have their stamp on it, and did not replace them with their own posters because they have to do their own investigation. I'm like, there's an open police file. Like, you're not going to do anything the police aren't, and that's a public disservice that they did to come and take the warnings down.
We've spoken to other dog owners who have been passing through here today, and one told me that everyone in the neighborhood knows about this, and it's causing a lot of concern for dog owners. He says, though, they're all watching out for each other.
Everybody's watching out for each other, and just everybody knows. Like around here, it's a very active dog. Like there's a blog that happens, like local blog. Everybody watches out for each other. So I'm not surprised.
Now, police say this is an open investigation, and they're encouraging anyone with any information to call Crime Stoppers or call 55 Division here in Toronto. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
Try to train them, but keep them close on the leash and, you know, be respectful and ask people if they want to be talked to or not.
Not everybody's a dog person. Your dog might not be social with other people.
Is it time for some training for dog owners? With thousands of pooches in the area, Liberty Village residents are getting some extra etiquette lessons. That story coming up. Stay with us. We will be right back.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The G7 summit at a seaside resort in France began under a cloud of uncertainty. French President Emmanuel Macron declaring from the get-go world leaders would not reach a joint communique. That, however, did not impede all progress on a range of issues. David Cochran has more.
Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron had kind words for each other.
This was a very special, very unified 2.5 days, and I want to thank you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. But despite the camaraderie, Trump's imprint on this summit was sizable. The normally long and expansive end of summit communique reduced to a single page. Leaders did agree to work towards the creation of an international tax for tech companies who find ways to avoid taxes. And in addition to taxing Amazon, they promised to help save the Amazon, pledging millions to fight wildfires, $15 million from Canada alone. but consensus on climate change was impossible. Trump notably skipped the climate and biodiversity session at the summit to hold one-on-one meetings with other leaders instead. And while leaders pressed him to dial down the trade war with China, Trump seemed less interested in settling than winning.
China wants to make a deal. Now, whether or not we make a deal, it's got to be a great deal for us.
Trade uncertainty causes economic anxiety, an issue Justin Trudeau says he raised at the summit.
Around the world, hardworking, middle-class people are already having a hard time making ends meet, even with a growing economy.
A topic for discussion, an issue in the coming federal election. Trudeau used a global summit to remind Canadians he would help them out.
We in Canada believe that we should put the best balance sheet in the G7 to work for the middle class.
If Trudeau wins the election, he will attend next year's summit, which will be hosted by Donald Trump. The president says he will bring world leaders to Miami, suggesting he will host this exclusive and expensive gathering at the golf course he owns there. David Cochran, CBC News, Biarritz, France.
A former Toronto police deputy chief is heading to Ottawa to become chief of the police service in our nation's capital.
Police are the most visible form of a functioning democracy. And so more than any other sector and any other agency, policing have to get it right. They also have the biggest lens on them. So when there is a misstep or a mistake or a misinterpretation, the impacts of that are significantly greater than any other place.
Peter Sloley will be the first black person to lead the city's police service. He served for nearly 30 years with Toronto and wasn't in the running to be chief here, but Mark Saunders got that job. Slowly resigned and worked as a national security consultant for Deloitte. He takes over in Ottawa at a time when the city's police service is struggling with low morale, budget constraints, and strained relationship with both the police union and the city's marginalized communities. Summer is slowly winding down, and this year, that means the election campaign is about to ramp up. The political parties have been waiting for people to return from vacation to roll out their pleas to voters. And as Katie Simpson tells us, Canadians are about to get inundated with those messages.
Get ready for a barrage of election ads, not just on television and radio, but online and on social media. Political parties spend months crafting short, punchy slogans, and they want those slogans to get stuck in your head before going into the voting booth.
I am for moving forward for everyone.
Choose Forward is the core Liberal re-election message, and it says a lot about the party's strategy.
Liberals need to make the election a choice between them and the Conservatives, period. They need to reduce the comfort zone for people to vote NDP or Green.
Conservative politicians have a different approach.
To do that, Justin Trudeau is trying to define his main opponent by lumping Conservative leader Andrew Scheer in with less popular Conservative figures.
Keep moving forward and build on the progress we've made, or go back to the politics of the Harper years.
The Conservatives are playing into a different kind of anxiety.
I have a plan to lower the cost of living, to make life more affordable, because it's time for you to get ahead.
Scheer and his team want the slogan to resonate with suburban voters, motivated by their wallets.
Not about grandiose promises. This is something very specific. You know, if you vote Conservative, you're going to get ahead.
The NDP hasn't released its final slogan yet, but so far the party is trying to cast itself as the traditional champion of the working class.
Why do the rich keep on getting richer and the rest of us keep falling behind?
The Green Party is trying to cut through the partisanship. Elizabeth May wants to appeal to voters sick of politics as usual, with not left, not right, forward together. The best way to get a message to stick is through repetition, so Canadians can be sure to expect to hear a lot of this right up until Election Day. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
We're live at Kipling and Bloor in Etobicoke, where some road closures will take effect in the next half hour to untangle the mess at Spaghetti Junction. Coming up, how long those closures will last and why they're needed.
A major transit announcement today for the GTA. The federal government is committing more than $1 billion towards 2 projects. And despite recent bickering, representatives of all 3 levels of government were on hand to throw support behind the plan. Nick Boisvert has the details.
Today I join Mayor Tory, the province of Ontario, my colleagues throughout the GTA region in making a concrete investment in getting you Torontonians moving faster and obviously safer.
With this new $1 billion commitment from the federal government, work is going to begin quite soon, apparently, on 2 projects that have been in the works for years. One of which is going to take place right here, where this could be the future home of one of Mayor John Tory's proposed smart track stations. The mayor first floated a version of the smart track network during his first mayoral campaign in 2014, but he says work on the stations could finally be imminent.
There is no reason, with the support of all 3 governments here today and the money's there, that we can't get those stations under construction right away to stay on that timetable, to have those trains in service and have those stations in use by 2024. We need it.
The other half of the $1 billion is going towards the refurbishment and capacity upgrade project at Bloor-Yonge Station, which is the TTC's busiest transit hub. The TTC has been asking for money for that project for years, and it seems that it will now go ahead sometime in the near future. With the money, the city is going to be able to install a new platform for the Line 2 trains and also upgrade the platform that services Line 1.
It's not shiny, but it's so important to the people who are riding the system, especially people on Line 1, which is the Yonge line. So there are a number of reliability and capacity issues on that line, much of which will be resolved through the expansion of this subway station.
While work on the 2 projects appears likely to go ahead for the moment, Mayor John Tory did acknowledge that there could be a slight issue if a new federal government is elected in October. That, he said, could lead to a possible delay in the work. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
Spaghetti Junction will soon need a new nickname. City crews are starting their last phase of construction to transform the highway-like intersection at Kipling and Bloor into a community-centric space. Taylor Simmons joins us live from the intersection now. And Taylor, some closures are beginning there tonight to allow all of this work to happen.
That's right, and just about a half an hour actually at 7 p.m. Bloor Street West will be closed from Kipling to Brennan Ave, and that's going to be closed until December. So if you do travel through this area often, you'll want to find an alternate route. But if you are familiar with the area, you'll see a lot of work has already been done to detangle those spaghetti-like features. But for anyone unfamiliar, the area gets its name from all these crisscrossing ramps and bridges built in the 60s. But the city has spent the last decade designing a new look for the area, saying the current configuration presents a roadblock to future development. The work to change it began in March 2017, and now during this new closure, they'll be removing the bridges along Bloor and widening the road and putting in some underground services. And what it will look like after, when it's all done, they say, we'll show you some maps right now, those dotted lines will be gone, which are those highway-type overpasses that I was just speaking about. They're adding intersections similar to what you'd see at other big spots around the city and putting in features like street furniture and widened sidewalks. So I spoke to Toronto's chief engineer about their vision for this new community hub.
The streets in the area have been all reconfigured, so with wide boulevards, pedestrian-friendly intersections, dedicated bike lanes, trees. So a total transformation of that area. And as you recall, earlier this year, in March, we demolished 2 of the bridges over Kipling Avenue. So we made quite significant progress.
So in future, an exciting space that's being developed here, but of course, with these closures comes some traffic headaches. So we're gonna show you what you can do to get around those, some recommendations from the city. To access Kipling from Bloor, the city recommends taking Bloor to Auckland and then east on Dundas. To get to Bloor from Kipling, take Dundas to Auckland. And signs will also be posted if you need some help remembering that. But Dwight, transit users who are going from Kipling Station to or from, even from Mississauga, will also want to check because those routes could be affected. And again, these closures will be done in December, but the whole change with the intersection will be done sometime in 2020.
Yeah, definitely needed some improvements at that difficult to maneuver intersection. Thank you for that, Taylor. On this International Dog Day, we have a story about the thousands of four-legged residents filling condos all over our city. As City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly explains, Toronto Animal Services is hoping to teach their owners some etiquette.
Liberty Village is filled with lots of people, lots of condos, and lots of dogs. Most of their owners think they're all living in harmony.
You try to train them, but keep them close on the leash and, be respectful and ask people if they want to be talked to or not.
Just make sure that you're around for the dog, you're responsible, you're not leaving it on its own.
In the village here, most people are trying to be courteous of one another and trying to, keep a nice clean spot.
But complaints about dogs in condos do come in to Toronto Animal Services. That prompted the city department to launch an information campaign targeting high-rise residents, with staff dispatched to the Liberty Village off-leash dog park tonight. Who here wants one? This is the second pit stop after the city's recent visit to City Place, and staff say more condo communities are in the works because of the unique challenges facing dog owners in close quarters.
The soiling in the shared areas is really that's not a pleasant issue.
And there are concerns about dogs in small stairwells and elevators.
If you're talking to your friend or if you're on your phone, for example, and not watching your dog, an accident can happen. And what we find is that people don't think that's going to happen.
This dog owner, who named his pooch Six in honor of the city's nickname, says everyone needs to lend a hand or a paw.
Not everybody's a dog person. Your dog might not be social with other people, so it's best to even ask first if you're about to touch a dog.
We're gonna see how this goes. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Students moved into a residence at Ryerson University over the weekend, and to break the ice, they attempted to break a world record.
This year's challenge is the most people controlling paddle balls. And so the previous record is 443. We're trying to beat that record this year.
I don't remember this much fun being had when I was at Ryerson. Unofficially, they broke the record, but they have to wait until their application has been approved. It's the 13th year in a row where the incoming class at the university has tried to break a Guinness World Record. That's not the only thing that happened at today's orientation. First-year students had the chance to meet with some older students. Here's some of their advice to the incoming class.
Don't stress too much if your first year isn't going the way that you thought it would. Things change, and you just have to find a way to flow with it.
You don't sweat the small stuff. A lot of it, when you first come into first year, may be really overwhelming, but at the end of the day, all you got to do is just remember to take breaks too.
And go to class. All right, classes at Ryerson start next week after Labor Day. She is one of the biggest pop stars in the world, and her new album has a Toronto connection. Taylor Swift is putting the spotlight on a group of young musicians from Regent Park. They are being featured on one of her latest tracks off of her new album. Shannon Martin joins us live now with more on this. This is really incredible. And you got to meet with these young people today.
Yeah, and they are crazy talented. Remember their names because we're going to see them in a few years. We're already hearing them on Taylor Swift's tracks. So they're from the Regent Park School of Music. It's an amazing program. It serves more than 1,000 kids across the city who may not otherwise have access to music programs. They got to go in studio with a Toronto super producer, Frank Dukes. They had no idea their work would be featured by Taylor Swift.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's literally just 2 chords. Because we were told that it was supposed to. The songs and the compositions were supposed to be used by big artists, but I didn't really expect it to be so quickly or someone with such a big name.
Because I was mostly playing chords on the composition, it filled the sound and it helped provide a steady beat. So I thought that was pretty nice.
could hear my voice in the song with an auto-tune, which is even better.
This is the first time I've heard a steel pan in a pop song.
And it's you.
Yeah, and it's me on there, so I'm just like, wow.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
She didn't really change it very much, so I was really happy about that. We would also do some plucking, so something like that, and we would just repeat it, and then we would build on top of that.
The talent of Regent Park School of Music now getting a global audience as part of Taylor Swift's new single.
School bell rings, walk me home, sidewalk chalk, covered in snow.
And it's all thanks to a superstar collaboration. Grammy Award-winning Toronto producer Frank Dukes recently brought the students into his studio, creating a music library. Anytime one of their samples is downloaded, proceeds go directly back to the school. Swift is the first to feature their work.
Where I pulled up the sample and played it for her, and she loved it, loved the voices, and we just ended up writing to the music. I mean, she loved it before she knew the story, and then she loved it more once she heard the story. So.
And now our kids are superheroes, which is kind of what we want to do for the underserved neighborhoods that we work in, is to allow kids to have that voice to shine and thrive on this now global kind of level. Because we're ready, and our kids are that special. And boy, does that track shine on her new record.
So this is the first of its kind, a music library that directly funds music education. It's called parkscapes.ca. It's sustainable funding for Regent Park, which you know is so critical for them. They also told us Swift gave them a call and made a one-time donation. They wouldn't say how much, just that it was very generous.
That is so special for those young people. So where do they go from here?
Well, that's what I was saying, right? Like, what about Drake? What about The Weeknd?
Come on now.
Yeah, and Shawn Mendes has already been posting about this on his Instagram, so you never know. They did 11 different tracks, so all it takes is one artist to pick up a little bit of a song, and there you go.
I wasn't going to download any Taylor, but I will download that
You
track
should do
for those
this
kids.
one, yes.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're
and welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
All right, so Colette, you were saying before that, you know, we had this great run of wonderful weather. A little cooler than we like it today, but we may be getting a reprieve, maybe?
Yeah, things are going to get a little bit cooler, windy and breezy. Windy, breezy, same thing. And as we go into Wednesday, we get back into the sunshine again. So it's pretty short-lived in terms of what we're going to be seeing. The current wind gusts out there, so St. Catharines, it's not significant, not showing up, but we have it for Toronto at 46, 37 in Oshawa, Hamilton, almost 30 kilometers an hour. Those winds are going to be getting stronger. So now we're into the forecast here. Southeasterly flow will turn a little more southerly as the system approaches, and then we'll see some of those gusts over 50 kilometers an hour into tomorrow morning. It will be breezy, and it's going to be wet as well, so you got to hang on to the umbrella when you've got winds like this. In terms of the afternoon, we'll start to see them begin to ease, but not till late afternoon into the evening, and then they'll start to get a little bit better. But it is going to be a windy day ahead. Current temperatures look like this. Yeah, a little cooler than Dwight would like. I would like it warmer than 22 degrees at the moment, too. The rain showers have already started into southwestern Ontario, and they are working their way eastward. There's actually two systems that we're dealing with, and they're going to kind of merge. So as they come together, it's out ahead of it. We're into the milder flow, so to speak, in terms of the direction being south to southeast. But then once the cold front comes through, that will take things away from us and clear us back out and shift the winds again. But even into tomorrow afternoon, in fact, it'll be a little bit spotty at times and kind of come through in waves into the afternoon, evening hours. A better chance with that front coming through, we could get into some thunderstorms, and it gets a little more organized before then moving out tomorrow night and setting us up to get back into some nice conditions for Wednesday, as I say, by midweek. So a look at the overnight temperatures tonight. They are mild, and in fact, it's humid. Tomorrow, we're going to find the humidex around 32, but the temperatures will look like this. And average at this time of year is right around 25 degrees. So really, we're not doing too badly. We're pretty close to that. Into Wednesday, with the sun returning, 25 the high. Thursday, 24, still close to seasonal. Friday at 25, and I'm sorry to say, a little cooler into Saturday, but we're going to keep that string of sunshine going again. We just have to get through this next short-term period. Wait.
Thank you, Colette.
You got it.
Tropical storm Dorian is gathering strength as it moves across the Atlantic Ocean towards Barbados, and that has people on several Caribbean islands getting ready and stocking up on supplies. Storm warnings remain in place for Barbados, Martinique, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. And St. Lucia is now under a hurricane warning. Dorian is expected to turn into a hurricane by tomorrow. People in Puerto Rico also taking precautions. Just a few days after going up, these billboards supporting Maxime Bernier are coming down. What the leader of the People's Party of Canada has to say about that, coming up. The leader of the People's Party of Canada is pushing back against criticism of a billboard campaign that supports the PPC's immigration policy. The sign calls on voters to say no to mass immigration. People's Party leader Maxime Bernier tweeted, "The message on the billboard is not controversial for 2/3 of Canadians who agree with it and for those who disagree but support free speech and an open discussion. It's only controversial for the totalitarian leftist mob who want to censor it." Sarah Levitt has more on how all of this is taking some of the shine off the formal launch of the PPC's campaign.
The billboards have popped up along highways across Canada. Say no to mass immigration, vote People's Party. Launching his campaign from his Quebec riding, Maxime Bernier defended the billboards.
We want fewer immigrants, a maximum of 150,000 a year, and we're not for mass immigration.
The billboards were put up by a third party called True North Strong and Free Advertising Corporation. Bernier tweeted that his party has no connection to the group, but that the billboards do accurately represent his stance on immigration.
For me, mass immigration, it's 350,000 a year. If you look at it, after 3 years, that would be 1 million new Canadians, and it's the equivalent of the population of Nova Scotia.
Bernier points to the Quebec election. Coalition Avenir Québec leader François Legault successfully ran on a campaign promise to temporarily reduce the number of immigrants. Bernier says many other Canadians want to have a similar discussion. As for those billboards, there has been criticism. Nova Scotia's Liberal Premier Stephen McNeil tweeted, "As Premier, I welcome everyone to Nova Scotia, but I don't welcome this negative, divisive tone." Bernier says it's not negative at all.
So we need to go back, we need to have fewer immigrants, but we need to be sure that these people would be able to integrate our society, to be part of our society.
The billboard company said while the ads met its standards, it's been inundated with complaints. It was never my or Pattison Outdoors' intention to offend, alienate, or insult the public by allowing this ad to be run. The company says the billboards will be taken down as soon as possible. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX was up by over 61 points. The Dow Jones was also up by almost 270. And the Canadian dollar traded for an average of 75.31 cents US. We'll be right back. Comedian Dave Chappelle hosted a star-studded benefit concert in Dayton, Ohio, for the victims of the recent mass shooting in that city. Stevie Wonder and Jon Stewart among the stars who came out. Yelena Adzik joins us now with more on this event. So let's start, Yelena, with what the performers were trying to achieve with this show.
You know, I think with this one, Dwight, it was really about community spirit, trying to get morale up. Obviously, everyone has been really devastated and shaken by the events that took place there, claimed 9 lives and many injured. And so it really was about getting the crowd to feel good, as strange as that may seem, given the circumstances. But that's what he did. And he brought on the mayor. You saw her there, Nan Whaley. You also saw Jon Stewart. He took to the stage. And then, you know, it was just so buoyant when Stevie Wonder got up and played for everyone. Chance the Rapper, yes. And so he was giving it a lot. There you get a look at Kanye West as well. He ended up spending some time there and performing for the crowd, being in the crowd. He brought his family. Kim Kardashian was there with the brood. And, you know, overall, this was something that was near and dear to Chappelle's heart because he lives near in the area. So have a listen to what he says he was hoping to do.
Nothing can break our spirit. I will never be afraid of you because you're my friends and neighbors and you give me strength. You're my countrymen.
Ohio, and he could live anywhere on the planet he wants to live, but he chooses to live near that community
he feels
right
very
there.
connected, yeah.
Tell us more about the performances, though.
So it was pretty incredible. Now, I got to tell you, Dwight, some of the quality isn't so great, which is why I don't have a clip for you of Stevie Wonder to show you, but I do have a couple of the other performers just to give you a bit more of a look as I talk about a little more of an extension to your earlier question about what were they really hoping to accomplish. At one point, they got right in the crowd. They were trying to talk to the governor who was there to say, you know, you have to change the gun control laws, but they also encouraged visitors to shop at the local businesses. This is located on 5th Street and purchase shirts or make donations to support the victims of the shooting. So now the concert was free, but overall, you know, the estimates vary. Chappelle quoted, he said on stage that there were about 120,000 people there. That's not an official number, but they did at least give 20,000 tickets away, and lots of people were watching even from outside the fences. So there was a huge crowd there. And at one point, they spoke with various people in the crowd and had to listen to what they had to say. So have a listen to that.
It's just amazing, and I think that we together as a community are really growing and recovering from this unspeakable tragedy.
The aura is amazing, so much peace, so much togetherness. The music is amazing.
Yeah, so clearly a morale booster, but also a money raiser, you know, for the area. And it's one of those that's, it's bittersweet, of course, because the events are so tragic. But as you could see there, they really were trying to bring a more buoyant feel to the neighborhood.
It helps with the healing after a tragedy like they suffered, to see everybody coming together like that.
Yeah, no question, Dwight, for sure. It's important.
Thank you, Elena.
We'll see you soon.
After the break, we'll take you to the stars with the help of some amateur astronomers. We're back in just 2 minutes. This weekend, hundreds of amateur astronomers escaped the city lights and set up their telescopes for Starfest. It is Canada's largest star party. Our video producer, Richard Ajukate, made the 2-hour trip northwest of the city to get a glimpse as well.
I have a 10-inch Newtonian reflector telescope. It's pretty good for dark sky objects. You can see almost everything that the Hubble can see, only the Hubble sees it much better, of course. I'm Alan Young, and I'm here at the North York Astronomical Association Starfest 2019. Growing up in Whitehorse as a young boy, I got a telescope, but trouble is, Yukon Territory, land of the midnight sun, in the summertime you don't really see very many stars. You see plenty of aurora borealis in winter, but no stars. After living in Ontario, as soon as I saw the night sky here in Ontario, the dark sky, then I was hooked. It's getting darker, but we can see more stars coming out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In about 10 minutes, the whole night sky will come out like a blooming flower. It will just blast out at us in just a few more minutes. I have a target list written down of things that I'll try to pick out tonight, starting with some simple things just to get the new equipment going. That's a new tripod, by the way. Once I've got it in the map, and I use the TELRAD and the finder scope to zero in on it. So the TELRAD, it's an optical device used for getting close to an object. We're going to have a lot of stars out here, and if you want to pick one out, you have to use some optical aids to get a bead on them with this telescope. I had about a half an hour, 45 minutes where I just lay back on a foam pad and look straight up at the sky. Very, very peaceful.
All right. You're supposed to move your mouth so I can pretend we're doing ventriloquism here, but it's not working out. It is National Dog Day, and this is Tia, our newsroom pooch. No, actually, it's Colette's pooch.
She's my therapy dog.
Bow tie brought her in today to say that, you know what, it's a special day, National Dog Day. Be kind to your pooch. What was that line you said about how you got her? You said, don't shop?
Adopt, don't shop. That's right.
Love that.
I was actually fostering Tia and fell in love with her, and then they call you a foster failure if you end up adopting the dog that you were fostering. I'm a failure,
right, Tia?
Because Tia.
You got a good mommy there.
Yeah, and let's see. Can you do some tricks for the camera? Sit.
Look at that.
Can you give Dwight a paw?
Can I get a high five for the Raptors win? Oh, that was Colette's high five. That's okay. And then you get a treat for that. Now, can she do the forecast too?
Yes.
Okay.
But we
Tia,
just have to put the board up.
What's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
And then she'll do it. Woof, woof.
Nice try, though. That's our show for tonight.
No, 19 overnight tonight, 24 tomorrow afternoon, and yes, we've got rain on the way, Dwight.
Thank you, Tia.
You're a good sport.
You sound just like Colette. That's it for us tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Good dog.